Welcome back to the Real Life Runners Podcast, episode number 451. So last week, we talked about a framework that popped into my brain. You guys will enjoy that story, so if you haven't checked out last week's episode, please go check it out. But I've been thinking about this framework all week long, and I love the framework that we came up with last week, which were the 3 I's. Information, implementation, and integration. And as much as I love this framework, it was missing something. And so today we're going to be talking about that missing piece to make it the 4I framework. So stay tuned. What's up, runners? What's up, Kev? Welcome back to the show today. I am very excited about this episode.
You are very excited about this, and we weren't even napping before we hit record on this one.
No, we were not, but I'm very excited to expand on last week's episode. So I'm just going to pause here. If you have not listened to episode 450, please go back and listen to that first, because this won't make as much sense. So really go back, listen to that first, because this is the add-on, because I have been thinking about last week's episode and the framework that I came up with last week, all week this week. And I was just thinking to myself, it was missing something. It was good. I loved it. I really loved our episode last week. I've gotten multiple compliments from listeners and clients and all sorts of people that have really enjoyed the episode. But it was missing something when I was thinking about it. And I realized what that was, and that's the whole topic of today's conversation. Aren't you guys excited?
I thought we were going to re-record it with accents this time. Is that
with accents?
Yeah. It would just make up accents along the way. That's what it's missing, is it's missing our attempt at accents. We're just going to go...
Or Kevin's attempt at humor.
Really poorly through the whole episode.
Okay. I just think it's funny that it's now the 4 I's method.
It is now the 4 I's
It's a 4I
method.
framework.
Yes.
And I was like thinking, I thought that gave me a little chuckle.
Excellent.
So let's talk about last week. So last week, we talked about the 3 I's, which are information, implementation, and integration. So that was this framework that I came up with, like Kevin said, as I woke up from a nap. That was a formula for change. So any sort of change that you want to make in your life, especially if you want to implement a new habit or really start to level up in any area of your life, that was a framework that I came up with and we started talking about. And it's really something that, yes, I came up with the I words last week, but this is a framework that really we've been talking about that I just haven't made as simple as I did last week. But they're the same things that we've been talking about for years here.
Yeah, it's just different words, but it's all the same thing. You have to take in some information and then you have to actually do something with it. You can't just take in the information.
I was thinking that it was missing something, and I was like, okay, it's got to be an I word, clearly, because I already have 3 I's. Now I need 4 I's. And it immediately came to me that the 4th I is intention. So it's information, intention, implementation, and then integration. This is the full cycle of change, because information would be the knowing of something. And last week we talked about how oftentimes we can know things, but why aren't we actually doing those things? We have a world filled with information. Information is at our fingertips at all times of the day. But there's oftentimes breakdowns in between information and then taking action, which is the implementation. Implementation is the doing. And then integration, which is the step that most people aren't able to take, is the becoming. So it's information is knowing, implementation is doing, and integration is then becoming. It's integrating that into who you are, into just what is normal for you in your life. And that's when you don't have to worry about willpower. You don't have to figure out motivation. It just becomes a part of who you are. But what I realized in my reflections this week is that you can't move from information into implementation without intention. You can, of course, but oftentimes that will lead to problems, which we're going to be talking about in this episode. And sometimes you can't even gather the right information without the intention. And that's where this week comes in. So I'm figuring, okay, how does this framework really fit together? And that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Right, because it's tricky to try and figure out. You had the 4 words, you're trying to figure out the appropriate order from them, and there was some discussion before we hit record on this of what is the right order, which makes sense. And I think that we've got this carefully spliced out of the appropriate move. But the key thing here is that the intention is necessary along the way. Right. Otherwise, you tend to not make it all the way through the process. You get derailed somewhere along the way. You could literally just get derailed just taking in more and more information because...
and then never actually setting an intention.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like without the intention, it doesn't even get you to the doing things. You just keep gathering more and more information.
And so many of us, I will highly raise my hand. I get stuck in that phase all the time. I think that oftentimes the smarter you are and the more educated you are, the more you want more information before jumping into the action of doing something, because you want to make sure you're doing the right thing. I know that's a big feeling that I have sometimes. I don't want to get things wrong. And so I tend to gather information, overthink things. And that can really keep us stuck or slow us down in getting to where we want to go. So what is intention? Intention is your direction. It is a decision. It is a goal. It is a chosen outcome. It's a commitment that you make to move towards something. We can call it a goal. I like to call it an intention because I like the feeling behind that word intention. To me, it means more than just a goal.
Yeah, it's the verb of it. It makes more sense. Like this is literally what I intend on doing. It's not even that I'm doing it. That's the next step. This is simply what I intend on doing.
What you want to do.
Yeah. Like I have some thoughts behind this. This is what I want to do. And I've got the information behind it. So I know these are the things. And now this is what I want to do with it. Now I'm going to go off and do the thing. And
so intention is really that missing piece when it was just the 3 I's of why am I doing this thing? What is my goal here? What am I actually building? What am I trying to accomplish here? Who do I actually want to become in this process? And I think it's really important for us to get clear on that, because Kevin and I were talking about this when I picked him up from school today, because we have 2 cars and our 16-year-old needed the second car. So I picked up Kevin from school and I pitched this whole podcast idea to him. And I'm like, here's what we're doing. And he was on board immediately. It was awesome. He's like, so is that what we're talking about? I'm like, that is it. Exactly. And we talked about how intention was such a necessary piece, because so many times people will get stuck in either gathering information, or say they gather the information and move into the implementation phase where they are actually taking the actions, but then they're not really sure that those actions are moving them to where they want to go. And that's really where the intention piece comes in.
This one reminds me of when I tried to convert you into a runner.
Yeah.
So many years ago.
So many years ago.
Because your first question...
I mean, we're successful at it, ultimately.
Woo!
You said when I tried to convert you.
Hashtag winning. But your first one, I don't even know how many times you asked, why am I doing this?
Yes.
Almost every workout I came up with, you would respond with, why am I doing this? It drove me nuts, but it also really made me think about what the purpose of all the different workouts were.
Yeah.
And some of them was because there's 14 different ways I could accomplish this goal. But this one, I think you'll find the most entertaining because there were certain parts of running that you really didn't like.
Yes.
Once I got you to running, there were parts that you liked more than others. And so it was we need to train all these different systems. You need a whole variety of workouts, but you don't like that kind of workout. So if we could avoid that, if we could find another way of training, that will get to the best results because you'll enjoy it the most. So the constant question of why am I doing this really made me then be able to think about a variety of different ways to get to the same goal. Why am I doing this? Because we're trying to increase your cardio capacity. Why am I doing this? We're trying to increase your power. Why am I doing this? We're increasing your high level speed. There were answers to all these questions, and you love having the answer because it allows you to follow through. Why you're doing something, if you're like, oh, if I do A, B, and C, then I get this result, great. And it's not exactly a guarantee you're getting the result, but given the knowledge in training philosophy, this is most likely going to get you to the best result. That's why you're doing this. And then you were on board with it.
Right. Because by nature, I am a questioner. And I always do ask the why. I want to know what is the reasoning behind this? Why am I doing this? Because if I don't think it's a good reasoning, I'm way less likely to actually do the thing. True story. I do not like to just do things because someone said so.
Very true story.
Does that surprise anyone?
No, it does not.
That's listening on this podcast whatsoever.
If this is your first episode, this is Angie.
Yes, that is not Angie. Angie is not just a follower of things and rules, which is funny because I was that way for a little piece of my life, but that was back when I wasn't actually acting myself, but that's a whole different
rabbit
episode and a whole different rabbit hole to go down. But like you said, it's okay that results aren't guaranteed. I never needed a guarantee of results because I've been playing sports enough to understand that no matter how much work you put into something, there's always uncontrollables and there's always things that can affect your results that you don't have control over.
Yeah, you want to be able to put yourself in the best position.
Correct.
To lead towards positive results.
Well, I wanted to know the intention behind the workout. Why am I doing this thing? If I do it this way, what am I actually building? What am I improving on so that I know whether or not I want to do that thing?
Yes. And then I had to make sure that I was coming up with the appropriate, correct answers for those. And some of those, the answers were, because that's how it's always been done.
Because that's what my coach did.
But that was very insufficient for you.
Yes.
And so then I had to actually figure out, why are we doing this thing? Is the actual point to it? Which allowed us to like really refine what we were doing at the time. Well, that's actually just fluff and we don't really need to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Or these two workouts are doing the same thing. We don't need both of them. So we really were able to streamline and optimize the training plans and the training philosophy at that time.
And so by me asking you all that questions so many years ago when we were doing this, which we had no intention of starting this company at that time. That really did build the foundation for Real Life Runners and everything that we've been able to create thus far.
Yes, that was the start of the foundation.
Which is pretty cool. Maybe you don't always know exactly where you're going, but that was part of the information phase that then led us to where we are right now. So when I was thinking about these 4 I's now, and I was thinking about this intention, I'm like, okay, intention is 100% a part of this framework. Where does it fit in? And I think that there's an interchangeability between the first 2 steps. So I believe that the main pathway is information, intention, implementation, integration. So intention is step 2 after you've gained information. But then I was also thinking, okay, I think that it could also be the opposite. I think it could be intention first and then information and then implementation and then integration. So I think that those two can be swapped, but we're going to have a fun discussion about this because you guys are literally listening to us develop this framework in real time. And I know, like, I just have this intuitive, this gut feeling, not just a feeling, but an inner knowing that this is going to become like the framework that I work with from now on.
Yeah, the thing that you just did with your hands really showed the gut feeling. I really wish we had that on video.
I know.
This is not a video podcast, but the symbol really showed this is a deep gut feeling that it's visceral, I think is what we're working with.
Visceral is a good one. Right
Thank
in my
you.
solar plexus.
There you go.
All right, so let's talk about pathway number 1, which I believe is the actual pathway, which is information, intention, implementation, and integration. So this is very common when you hear new things. Like you're always scrolling through social media, you're reading the news, you're talking to your friends and you're hearing something new, you're learning new concepts, you're listening to podcasts and podcasts are bringing out new ideas. So all of a sudden you're hearing, okay, that running, you find the Real Life Runners podcast and you're like, hello everyone, you should be running most of your runs at an easy level. That means a level 2 to 3 out of 10.
Was that your impression of me or you?
I don't know.
Okay, cool.
It was just like my authority voice.
Authority voice.
Random
okay.
authority voice.
Good.
And you realize, oh my gosh, I've been running all my runs at 6 out of 10. So then, now that you have this new information, you set an intention. Okay, I want to be a more intentional, sustainable runner. I like these guys. I trust these guys. They've been 450 podcasts in, let's do this thing. So then that intention, you set the goal of, okay, I'm going to try to slow down on my easy runs and make my easy runs actually feel like a 2 or 3 out of 10. So that intention then fuels your implementation. You then start taking the actions and start slowing down on your runs and start to put that into implementation. But without that intention, without you actually deciding to put that into action, it just stays as interesting information and you don't gain any benefits from that information.
No, you definitely that's interesting. And then you either move to a different podcast.
Which is probably plenty of you.
You keep scrolling.
Right. There's plenty of you out there that have probably heard us say this multiple times and are like, oh, that's interesting. And you haven't actually put it into practice yet.
You may actually have heard us say that while you were cruising along at a 6 out of 10 and gone to yourself, interesting, and just kept on chugging.
So I will challenge you right now. If that is you right now, listening to this podcast on your run, and you are not supposed to be doing a speed workout where you are supposed to be running at a 6 out of 10, and you are actually just out on a normal run, I invite you to slow down. I invite you to just try easy running, even if it's just for 5 minutes. try that out and see what it feels like.
I suggest that you take a walking break before you start up, because sometimes it's tricky to just bring it down.
That's true.
From 5 or 6 down to 2 or 3.
Sometimes it is, but sometimes it makes it easier. Sometimes you like find that normal pace that you go out, and then you pull back.
Then you just pull back a little bit on it, and you're like, oh, this is so much easier. I could totally do this. And that's where you've started to find what easy pace actually is.
Exactly. So that would be pathway 1, and that is what my framework is going to be.
That's the pathway.
Pathway number 2, which I also think is just an interesting discussion point, because I think that this happens too. So pathway number 2 would be the intention comes first. So intention, then information, then implementation, and then integration. So this happens when you set a goal first, or you feel called towards something, or you just decide, hey, you know what, that sounds pretty cool. Like, I want to run a half marathon. That sounds like a good idea. That is just where you set that goal first, and then you're like, okay, now what information do I need? So when you set that goal first, that drives the information that you then seek. It drives what experts you choose to listen to, what advice you might ignore. So intention filters the information. And without intention, you drown in the noise, because there's so much information out there. And so information without the intention can lead to overwhelm. But then intention without information often leads to frustration. So you always need both. And I think that this is where Kevin and I had a good discussion in the car about this, because I was saying, even if intention comes first, so say your intention comes first, and you're like, you know what, I want to run a half marathon. That came from somewhere, right? Like that. Maybe your friend ran a half marathon, or maybe you saw that Des Linden just won the Princess Half Marathon, which is so cool. I know that non-runners probably aren't paying attention to those kinds of things, but there's probably, or maybe you were driving down the road and you saw somebody running on the side of the road and you're like, you know what, I should start running. Or you went to your doctor's office, and the doctor said, oh, you should start getting healthier. Your blood work doesn't look so good. There's some sort of information that likely led to you making that goal.
Yeah, you've got a goal that's bigger than what you're doing. You may even be running right now. The Winter Olympics were just on. You're like, they have big giant goals. I'm going to make a big goal.
Yeah.
If you're used to doing 5K kind of training, 5K kind of distance, you're like, I'm going to do a half marathon. That's a big jump. And so there's something that sparked this new idea.
Yeah.
And then from that, you start figuring out, okay, what steps would I actually need to do? That's where you start seeking out the information. But that's where I think that it goes back to intention. Just because you have this sort of inspiration at the beginning, that you're like, oh, I intend to do that. I've got a goal out here. As soon as you start collecting the information, that might not be once you gather some information.
Yeah.
You might gather information that all says, I don't want to do any of these steps. And now your intention is to not go down that path. Or it may double up. It may actually validate your intention. But I think that you have to recommit to the intention after the information gathering phase.
Yeah, and I think you experienced this before when you decided you were going to try to PR in your 1 mile and your marathon, like at the same time.
In the same calendar year. That was my goal.
Yeah, and then you figured out what that would entail, and you decided that was no longer going to be your intention.
Yeah, so I worked out like a training plan to PR in the mile, and even on paper, it looked fine. I'm like, oh yeah, this is good. This is going to get me there. I can do these workouts. These workouts will be fine. And then I actually got to the implementation, and I got one step in implementation, and I was like, I do not want to do any of these things. I do not intend on PRing in the mile.
That intention is off the table.
Yeah. I'm like, nope, we're done with that one.
Yeah.
I still need to focus on speed, but I have no desire to become the fastest miler that I've ever been. That's not going to work. We will leave that to 17-year-old Kevin.
Yeah, so sometimes you set an intention and then you gather information, or you even move into the implementation phase and you're like, yeah, no, actually, I'm going to refine this intention. And that's totally okay. Going backwards, like it's not, okay, now I have information and now I'm going to set my intention and implementation and now I'm integrating. And this is who I am. Like once you're, like you can stop at any point along the way and reevaluate. And so I think that intention really can be fit in all along this spectrum, if you really think about it. Because like even after implementation, you can go back to intention.
Yes.
This is not just a linear pathway.
No, it's not. It matters quite a bit, because before you fully integrate this into a personal identity of this is who I am, it might not be. Like maybe that's just a thing that you're going to do for a small window.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, that's a goal. And these are the steps I'm going to take to accomplish this goal. And I don't intend on completely changing my life and overhauling it and doing this for the rest of my life. When I started the pathway of running ultra marathons, I was not sure how excited I was going to be for it. I was very excited about the idea of running something that was further than a marathon. And then once I started going down that path, I had to keep checking in with, is this correct intention? Is this an enjoyable process? Do I like these steps? And the steps, as I kept gathering more information, they changed. There's more strength involved, and there's different types of training, and I have to figure out how to train my gut and eat so much. And all of these things could have then been like, that's not the lifestyle that I would like. That's not things I want to actually integrate to who I am. But it is. And I'm like, actually, I do. I intend to keep getting better at this thing. And so I need to keep adding more things into it and putting that into part of essentially who I am so that I can continue to train properly.
Yes. And I think that especially with ultra running, that has to become a part of who you are. Like, it is not all of your identity, obviously, because you are still husband and father and teacher, and you've got lots of different identities, but especially ultra running. And I would argue really any distance running, but especially ultras, because of the time commitment involved, not just in your training, but in everything else that you just mentioned, like the nutrition and the recovery and all the other things that we talk about here on the podcast. That's just all at such a higher level because of the distance, because the mileage is so much higher. Everything else has to be so much higher as well. So that really has to become integrated into who you are, into your lifestyle, if you want to be able to be successful at that.
Yeah, the time commitment of training, depending on what goals you're aiming for, the time commitment, the number of hours spent training during the week is different, and it involves a different level of integrating into your life.
Yeah. And I've even experienced this before too. Like when I go to some of your races and I see the amazing runners out there. So this is the main reason that I even decided to run a half marathon, was I saw you run your half marathon. And I love telling this story because here you are in second place in your very first half marathon ever, which was super cool, me holding our 3-month-old daughter. But then as I stood there watching all of the other runners that started crossing after you, and they were all different ages and shapes and sizes and male and female and different cultures and like all sorts of humans doing this same thing. And yes, you did it faster than all of them except for one person, but they were all running the same distance as you. And I thought that was so amazing, and it made me want to do it. And so I then moved into implementation phase. So I had the information. I then set that intention of, I want to do this. I want to become a half marathon, or I want to run a half marathon. And then of course you go back into information phase to figure out, okay, what do I need to implement? And then you start implementation. And so I did that. I implemented and I trained, and I really did integrate it into who I was at that time. And then I had daughter number 2, and that things changed a little bit in that integration phase, but then I got back to it, and it did become a part of my life in a very big way. And then I watched you start to run marathons and start to run ultra marathons. And I see you doing these 100 miles. I'm like, wow. And again, I'm watching these people that are all different ages and just doing the same, running 100 miles. And I think to myself, wow, that would be amazing. And then I go out on my 5-mile run and I think to myself, 20 times? And then I say, no, thank you. That's not something I want to do right now.
To be fair, I also have that same thought. And not just like in the weeks following the race, but literally in the week heading into the race. I had a run, I think it was a 5-miler on the Monday of race week. And I'm like, a 5-mile run. And I was struggling to actually hold the pace and feel comfortable. It's like, it's race week. Everything feels awkward during race week. And I finished that run and I'm like, there's just no way. There's no way that I could possibly do 95 more miles. There's absolutely not a chance.
Yeah.
Even on race morning, and you're feeling good, and you wake up and you're like, all right, I've got the excitement of race day energy, and it's still trying to wrap your head around, and now I'm going to run for the next 19 hours. I'm going to go do 100 miles. It's madness. So it's not just a thought that you have, it's a thought that I have before, during, and after the distance, because it's so far.
It's so far. It's so far. But you enjoy the process. And I think that's really a big piece of it, because you really have decided to integrate this not only into the things that you do and the way that you live, but really into who you are. And I think that when we look at this framework overall, especially this intention piece, this matters even more for us after 40, especially for us women when we're going through perimenopause and postmenopause, because all of us, not just women, but women, men, everybody right now, we are in the information culture. We are in content culture. There's so much content. And so we are consuming information constantly. We're saving posts. We're listening to podcasts. We're buying programs. But so many times what I see people doing is consuming all this information, but not always pausing to ask themselves, what is my intention right now? Why are you training? What are you actually training for? Are you training to prove something to yourself or to someone else? Are you training to shrink your body and to lose weight? Are you training to escape stress, to feel strong, to build longevity, to get as fast as you can right now and burn your body out and break it down and then never be able to run again? Are you training just to check a box and then to be done with running forever? All of these are really important questions, because there are runners that fall into all of these boxes. And I don't think anyone really goes into running thinking, I'm going to go burn out and break my body down and just see how fast I can get. But that's how you're training.
I think some people do that.
You think so?
Yes. I think that there is definitely a portion of professional runners that don't care about longevity. Like, for career longevity, they'd like to be able to sustain for as long as possible so that they can be the professional athlete as long as possible. But I think not all of them, but I think that there's a good number of them that are like, and then once I'm done with my professional career, if I occasionally go out and jog, that'd be fine. Or if I never run and I can just stay in shape on a bike or something like that, that they're fine just going all in on it for the small window that they can be a professional athlete, because that's a small window. Okay,
and I agree with that. And those are the people that are often trying to get at that last 1%.
And also probably not listening to this podcast.
Totally. And that's okay. But those people are training differently than 99.9% of the people listening to this podcast, the people that we like to affectionately refer to as the real life runner, you all. So training, like, is that the intention behind your training? And if it's not the intention behind your training, if you are someone that wants to run for decades to come and you don't want there to be an end to your running journey and your running life that you can foresee, maybe in the back of your mind, you're like, I'm sure at some point in time I might have to stop, but I don't want to be able to, I don't want to ever stop running. I want to be able to do this for as long as I want to. Then you can't train the same way that professional runner is training. And I think that so many people are doing that without even realizing it. And it's not that they're exactly training on the same level as an elite professional athlete, but they're out there pushing themselves every day to a point where they might as well. They feel like that's what's going on here. Every run is going to be like everything I got, leave it all out on the pavement type of things. And just FYI also, elite runners don't train like that.
Yeah, no, elite runners do not train like that. The vast majority of elite runners, the massive amount of their training that is so simple and easy and comfortable, that goes way back. I want to say Frank Shorter, his training philosophy was like 2 speed workouts a week and as much easy running as your body can handle.
Yeah.
That was the entire train. And it was like, if you max out and at 80 miles a week, everything starts hurting on you, then that's your cap. And if you can get to 100, then that's your cap. And if you can get to 120, then that's your cap. And he happened to be ridiculously resilient. I think he regularly was training around 120, but He felt that it was these workouts and then throw as much easy training as possible. And while we're not professional athletes, there is some research that suggests that if you're doing a lot of easy running, that over the long term, you're going to be, in general, the best athlete to show up.
Yeah. So going back to intention, your intention for all of it changes how you implement things. And that's why it comes before implementation. It changes how hard you push, the actions that you're doing, the runs that you're doing, the strength training that you're doing, how consistent you are. Intention changes whether or not you are going to be able to sustainably do this for the rest of your life, or you're going to end up burnt out in fighting injury after injury. And intention changes whether or not you make it to the integration phase. Because I truly believe that intention is the bridge to identity. Last week when we talked about this framework, it was missing that piece. Yes, information to implementation into integration, but you still have to have intention. I think that intention makes its way into the framework again at that point in time. It's like information, intention, implementation, intention, integration. I think that it can fit there also because, like you just said, Kevin, you gave us a great example of this when you were training for the mile and the marathon at the same time. Once you moved into the implementation phase, you decided not to move into the integration phase. So it's not that you did it like you couldn't move to integration. You made a conscious, intentional choice not to move into the integration phase. And I think that last week we talked about how so many people get stuck in this implementation phase and never move fully into the integration phase. But I think that it's also because you can choose not to. You can choose that once you go into the implementation phase and you start putting these things into action, then you have to move back into the intention phase and decide, okay, is this something that I enjoy? Is this something that I want to keep doing? Is this the kind of person that I want to be? And that really goes deep into the identity level, and that's where things integrate. Yeah,
and once you've reached that integration phase, that doesn't mean this is who I am forever.
True.
You can hold that identity for a while. That doesn't have to be your entire identity. Mm-hmm. That doesn't have to be your identity for the next 50 years. You can keep checking in on your identity. It can
be a phase or a season.
Yeah, you can keep checking in. And it's like, during this season of my life, I'm going to integrate all these things. I'm not just checking boxes. This is going to be part of who I am, an important part of who I am, so that I can train for this big goal that I actually have. Because I feel like the best way to strive for big goals is not to be like, here's a list of tasks that I should accomplish, but to really integrate those into who you are. You talked about this when you were training for half marathons.
Yeah.
You really integrated that, and you were like, I am a half marathon runner. Mm-hmm. And it gave you the power, and you didn't need willpower to get out there and do it. It was just like, no, I am a half marathon runner. These are the workouts that I will naturally do, because it just makes sense. A half marathon runner goes and gets in the long run on the weekend. So if you woke up on the weekend, you're like, ooh, I don't really feel like getting in a long run. Well, it didn't make any sense then. You had to go get the long run in because that's what half marathoners actually do on the weekend.
Because that was my intention. That was the goal that I have set for myself. And then to really make sure that intention came to fruition, I did have to integrate that into my life. And I think that's where people sometimes have difficulty with consistency, and they think that they need motivation because they don't fully integrate it, even for that phase of their life. It still becomes this thing where they get stuck in implementation. They're like, I have to do this thing. I have to follow my training plan. Like it's just a set of linked actions instead of I am intentional about who I'm being and the way that I'm living my life, and I'm integrating this into who I am right now at this moment in time. And like Kevin said, that can become who you are for years if you want it to be, or that can be like, you know what, this is what I'm focusing on this year. I'm going to go hard. I'm going to go all in on this. And then at the end of this year, then I'll figure out if I want to continue with this or not. And that's totally okay. But intention is the conscious decision. Right? Intention is where you decide, I like this. I don't like this. This is what I want to do. This is the direction I want to go. This is not the direction I want to go. And when you move into integration, that becomes the unconscious embodiment of that thing. So intention is conscious decision. Integration is the unconscious embodiment of it.
Yeah, no, that makes great sense. With intention, you are rarely choosing to do the thing. And integration is all the way to, this is simply who I am.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to make the choices. It's just what you naturally do. Mm-hmm. So then all the steps that you're doing is so aligned with who you are that there's no thought about it. There's no resistance to it. Every once in a while, are you still going to be like, I'm struggling today?
Totally.
Sure. But
of course.
But it's a natural thing. You'll feel off not doing the thing. Whereas without intention, you're like, all right, these are the steps that I do, and I do them. If I get my music going and I fire up appropriately, then I'll do these things, because you don't have the intention to actually integrate that into your life. It's still, you're just knocking off boxes. That's implementation. That's good. And you can get great results with implementing as long as you stay on the plan. But you have to get the willpower almost every workout to stay on the plan, to continue doing the thing, to continue implementing day after day. If you integrate it into your identity, you don't have to get re-inspired every day.
Yeah.
You just go do the thing.
And so when you have that integration and when you have that intention, your implementation becomes more aligned. It doesn't become this thing that you have to do. It just becomes this natural thing that you're doing because this is who you are. This is the thing that you're working towards. This is what you've decided already. And now this is just me carrying it out. A lot of times we like to talk about fun things on the podcast, but I also want to give you guys some practical application ideas of really how do you integrate this into your practice. So we already gave you one in this episode. So if you're running, we told you to slow down and make sure that you're actually running easy, which is good. But I think that it's important for us to reflect on this a little bit more and ask yourself a couple of questions. So if you are running or driving, I would suggest you come back to this. We're at like the 37-minute mark in the podcast-ish. And if you're at a place where you can write some stuff down, grab a piece of paper or grab your journal and think about some of these things. So number one would be, what is my current intention with running? Why are you running? Why are you training? Why are you doing the things that you're doing? Because if you are unclear about your intention with running right now, it's going to be so much harder for you to stay consistent. Like right now, I'm not training for a race. So my intention is consistency. Your intention can be consistency. My intention is to be a runner, to be a strong runner. My intention is to build muscle and to also maintain my cardiovascular fitness. That's where I am in my intention right now. So your intention does not just have to be, oh, I'm getting faster. You can have seasons where you don't care how fast you run. Gasp. Did you gasp?
I did. You got me for a second there.
Because I think that there's so many people that think, oh, I always have to be building towards something. I always have to be trying to get faster. Or I always have to be trying to run a longer distance. You don't have to be building towards anything right now if you don't want to. If that's not a good aligned intention for where you are in your life with everything else that's going on in your life right now, your intention could be maintenance, and that is totally okay.
Yeah, my intention right now, short term, is not actually building.
Getting jacked.
It is. But that's over a longer period of time. Right now, I'm currently at enjoying lifting.
Yeah.
And my behavior has to match the enjoyment of lifting, because for too long I got to implementation and I knew the things that I was supposed to do. And I then literally had to fire myself up. I had to have the appropriate environment to then actually implement the thing. And if it didn't, it was so very easy to just not lift that day, which then slid into that next day, which then slid into that week and month. And oh shoot, I'm just off the routine.
Yeah.
Because I was stuck at implementing. And so I'm trying to come up this a different way. So my current intention is simply bringing the enjoyment to lifting, which has never been my intention ever.
Has never, ever.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
Even back when I was younger and I actually enjoyed lifting, because I derailed from the enjoyment of lifting in college. That's a whole different story. But even when I was younger, I enjoyed the lifting because I liked going to the gym with my dad. That was what was behind it. I didn't actually enjoy the lifting aspect. I just thought it was cool that I got to go to the gym with my dad. So now I'm trying to bring the enjoyment to it and figure out what do I need to put into here that I can actually get the enjoyment out of lifting. And so my behavior matches that.
So what have you decided? Like, how have you started to enjoy lifting, or what things have you been implementing to see if they're working for you?
So I took away a lot of the structure of the lift. I am definitely not hitting all of the different exercises that I'm supposed to be hitting. I know
this is not good training advice, FYI, everyone.
This is helping me. This is helping me build consistency.
Yes, no, that is a good thing.
And ultimately, consistency is the best training advice.
It is, and so I think that it is important. So I'm actually really glad that you're bringing this up, because when someone would come in and ask for coaching, oftentimes they're looking for a plan. And we have tons of plans. We have structured running plans. We have structured strength training plans. We've got all the plans. We've got all the plans that work together. We've got mobility. We've got all the things. But sometimes, like what Kevin is explaining right now, that's too much for someone. So we just need to get them into the gym. We just need to get them doing some of the mobility, understanding that they're not actually building a ton of muscle during that time, and that's okay. We're building a habit first, because ultimately, once the habit is built, once the consistency and the routine is built, then it's going to be much easier to slide right into the things that are actually going to build the muscle. It's the same thing with running. It's the same thing that you did with me when it was running time.
Yes, it is.
At the beginning, you were just giving me fun workouts so that I would then get over my hatred, my complete despisement. That's not a word.
That's not a word.
What is there a noun for despise?
Despisal?
Despisal's not a word.
It should be a word.
Then what word am I looking for? I don't want to say hatred. I feel like there's a more fun word than that.
Detest.
Detest. Ooh,
that's a noun.
Yeah. Despising, detest, those are different. But yes, my detestation of running.
Detestation, I don't think is a word either.
Detestation? That's a word, isn't it?
Despisal.
So
it's like when you put stuff down the sink that you really don't like, then you hit the despisal and then it grinds it all up and it goes away.
No, I had to get over my complete dislike of running. And so you gave me fun interval workouts. And were they getting me in shape? Yes, because my cardiovascular fitness at that time was probably so low that anything would have helped me, because
which I knew.
Right. So it didn't really matter what you were doing. Yes, it was helping me, but it was also building my enjoyment of running, which was then going to lead you to be able to give me more things, which sounds like that's what you're doing with lifting right now.
That's exactly what I'm doing with lifting.
Yes.
It took me a while to realize that I needed to do the same thing with my lifting that I did with your running, is I needed to get to the enjoyment of lifting before I got to what is the actual specific plan and the actual exercises that I need to be doing to best optimize my lifting.
So what exactly do your lifts look like? What does this enjoyment look like?
I pick exercises that I feel like doing that day.
Okay.
And it's not like I'm doing like 2 exercises and being like, all right, let's call it a day. Let's just listen to some music and look at the weights.
Yeah.
I'm doing things. I've done a variety of lifting routines over the years that you have given me.
Yeah, you're hitting good things. Like I see you in our home gym now.
Yeah, no,
But you're getting good exercises in.
But there are definitely days where I'm like, I don't really feel like hitting that area. Yeah. And I just don't. And I know for a fact that it's not the best way to do my lift. But I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing chest today. Or I'm not doing, I'll pick a thing and I'm like, I don't feel like doing that lift today. And so I literally just don't. Mm-hmm. And I will get to a point where I actually enjoy the lifting process. I've got my music going. And it's not like I need the music to get myself fired up and pumped. It just adds to the enjoyment of the process. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Okay, this is really good, because you're like, I don't feel like doing it today, so I just don't. But that's because your intention for strength training right now is enjoyment. If your intention was to actually build muscle or train for a race, you could not be acting that same way. Your actions and your behaviors would not be aligned with your goal. And that's one of the things I see a lot of runners doing.
Yes.
They're actually trying to build muscle, or they're trying to prevent injury, or they're trying to rehab from an injury, or they're trying to do these things. And they go to the gym and they're like, I just don't feel like that today. That does not align.
Totally different, totally out of alignment.
Yeah.
I'm purely going for enjoyment right now, knowing full well that this has to be a short season. Otherwise, I'm going to just be wasting time.
Yes.
Because you can't just go off and be like, I'm only going to do the exercises I feel like. I'm
Right.
only going to do the runs that I feel compelled to do.
But that's a good thing for a short amount of time.
It's a good thing
Especially
to build...
like after a race, right? Like getting back and just doing the runs you like.
Yeah, do the runs you like, do the lifts that you like, get the enjoyment, get the routine going again. And then once you've done that for a window, once you've got the routine established and it's become, oh, this is just what I do. I lift a couple of times a week and I make it work into my schedule. This is how it works out. It's not, I hope I can shoehorn that into my schedule somewhere. No, it fits into my schedule. This is where it's going to go. It goes on to... The way it works on mine is it's like I've got 4 time windows and I'm going to use 2 of them.
Yeah.
Because I've got a lot of moving parts during track season. But I've got windows that I can use. And so I'm about to the point, which we didn't start with personal stories at the beginning, but I'm basically at the point now where I need the routine from Angie that is now going to start building the muscle in a more optimal way.
Woohoo!
I know, it's very exciting.
So exciting. But so that would be a question that you all, as our listeners, should ask yourself. So what is my current intention with my running, my lifting, my fitness? And then question number 2, is my behavior aligned with that? So Kevin's behavior of just doing willy-nilly in the gym is very much aligned with his behavior, or with his goal and his intention right now. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, if that's still my behavior a month from now, then we're all out of alignment.
Willy-nilly strength training?
Yeah, willy-nilly strength training is not going to
But there's so many runners out there that are doing that. They're just finding random workouts on YouTube or whatever app they're on, and they're just like throwing some things in. Is that aligning with the intention and the goals that you have? If so, great. Like if you're someone that's just like trying to stay in shape and you're just trying to get some strength training in and you don't actually care about progressive overload and building muscle and doing these things in a way that's going to be more effective, then it's totally fine to do all of those things. And there's zero judgment about that. It's just, is that aligned with what you want? That's the question you have to answer for yourself.
Which leads to the next one. Am I collecting information without intention? If I want to start, I know the answer to this question of what plan should I follow with strength training is I go to Angie and say, I need the actual workouts. I need twice a week. What am I doing? Do I actually need to put in a 3rd time a week? We'll have this conversation.
Yeah.
But I'm not just scrolling Instagram. I'm not searching strength on Instagram and just popping things up. That does not have appropriate intention. I'd like to get a drink of water. I'm going to go to the fire hydrant. That's not a great way to collect information. There's no intention there. There's just an insane amount of information coming at you. And so it's very hard to be intentional when you have information overload. So are you just scrolling and whatever video pops up at you, that seems like a good one. Did you go on YouTube and search for stuff? Because if you go on YouTube and search for stuff, they've checked this. Something like 80 to 85% of people make their decision on what video to watch on YouTube based off of the thumbnail. That doesn't necessarily mean it has useful information. Just mean that they figured out how to make a cool thumbnail. Really all that showed.
It's true. And I've fallen into this trap with yoga. Like when I want to do a good yoga routine, I'm like, oh, let me find a yoga routine on YouTube because there's so many of them. But some of them I'll start and I'm like, this one sucks. And then I have to go find another one. I'm like, oh God, this woman's voice is terrible. And so there's all these different things. And so that's one of the reasons I have my yoga teacher. That's my local yoga teacher. She puts her stuff on YouTube. I watch her. Is it the best video quality? No, I can't really see what's going on, but she's got great cueing. I love her cueing. I know yoga enough that I know exactly what she's talking about. I've taken her classes in person. And so I can follow along with her routines wonderfully. I love her voice. I love her vibe. I love her music. I love everything about her. So I know that when I go to her page and get a yoga routine, it's going to be exactly what I want versus just trying to find something else that's 20 minutes long.
So you have some thought behind your collection of information.
Yeah.
You actually know the information that you're going for.
And then that takes us to our next question, which is, am I setting intentions without seeking the right information? Am I seeking intentions without... am I setting intentions without seeking the right information? Are you just setting a goal and then trying to figure it out along the way? Are you getting good, reliable information? Are you not just scrolling Instagram or TikTok or downloading a training plan from the internet that may or may not be the right training plan for you? Are you asking ChatGPT to make you a training plan?
Oh, please don't do that.
Please don't do that.
Yeah, or Runa, I think, is the thing built
Runa,
into Strava now. Yeah, don't do that either. But finding good information. And there are a lot of sources of quality information. I think one of the issues that currently exists in the world is there's a lot of intended information out there, but if you collect it from so many different sources, it becomes incredibly overwhelming.
And a lot of those informational sources, even though they are all good on their own, can sometimes be conflicting information as well, which is super confusing.
Yes, and then it gets very difficult. So without seeking the right information gets tricky. You need to find a source that you can trust to have the information. So then you've got the intention and you have a trusted source of information, so that's where you're going. And we'd love to be the source of information for you.
Yeah, of course.
That's fantastic.
But we're not for everybody, and that's totally okay too.
That's why there is more than one running coach in the world.
Yeah, and I am someone that wants to share the wealth. If you love our podcast and you want to work with us, great. Come work with us. We love helping runners. But if we are not the right coaches for you, find the right coach that is and follow that coach's methodology, because that's the key. Is if you are currently working with a coach and then you're still getting things from here and getting things from there, don't get me wrong. I am all about learning the things and, again, questioning, like we talked about earlier in the episode, always being questioning. But if you choose and you make a choice to go with a coach or to go with a certain training plan, you have to commit long enough to see if that thing is actually working. And I think that a lot of people give up on things before they can tell whether or not that thing is actually working.
Right. And this happens so much in any physical endeavor. In endurance training, in lifting, you're not going to see massive results in general over a very small time window. You're looking probably at 6 months before you're getting big results, unless you're starting from a very low level,
right.
In which case you could follow almost any plan and you'll see pretty good results over a short term.
As long as you don't get injured.
As long as you don't get injured. But then what happens after that month is done? Are you on something that's actually sustainable? Or are you just gathering bits and pieces from various places of the internet? You're like, oh, I do this, and then I do this, and then I do this. You're going to improve in a small window, but you need to find a good source that will lead to a sustainable result that actually follows your intention, that aligns with who you want to become.
Yeah, exactly. So ask yourself, finally, what is one intention that you want to set this month? For example, for the next 30 days, my intention is to lift weights twice a week. My intention is to build strength. My intention is to regulate my nervous system and finally do something about all this stress that I'm feeling, because I know that it's affecting my training, because Angie and Kevin are telling me that it is. And so I have to figure out how to get myself under control here.
Excellent.
I know, that was a long one.
That was a long one. That may have just rolled right off your tongue now.
But then once that intention is clear, once you have that intention set, implementation becomes simpler. You can actually say, okay, this is my goal, this is my intention. Now, what are the actions that I need to do that align with that intention that will be the most likely path for me to achieve that thing? And then once you make implementation more simple, then integration becomes possible. Because if implementation has way too many steps and is overly complicated, it becomes much less likely that thing is going to integrate into your life. We need simplicity. Our mind likes to shut down and shut us down when things are too complicated. But when things are simple and clear, that's when we can move into integration. As a recap, the 4I framework is information, intention, implementation, and integration. And yes, intention can float around within this. I think that intention is the floating piece that we always want to make sure that we know that what our intention is, and make sure that once we are in the implementation phase, that is all still aligning with our intention. So this is all kind of circular.
Yeah, no, intention is the overarching thing that makes sure that you are always actually moving in the direction that you want. It's the one that gives you awareness, not new knowledge that information does, but awareness of whether that knowledge is going to be something that you want to do. Awareness of whether those implemented actions are things that you would like to continue doing, of whether those actions are something you want to continue doing enough that it actually becomes part of who you are. The intention is your mental awareness of doing everything for a reason, which is perfect with how you like to work in the world.
Absolutely. So if you are feeling stuck, most likely it's not because you don't know enough. You have tons of information at your fingertips. It could be because you haven't yet decided what your intention is. So once you clarify your intention, that allows you to then filter the information, which allows you to implement things more clearly and more simply, which then allows you to integrate all of that into who you are and into your life. And that's really where sustainable change comes from.
And ultimately, sustainable change. That's the continuity. That's what you can do for the rest of your life. And you may need to make some tweaks along the way. It integrates, but the integration and how you actually implement the steps changes from year to year, from season to season. But it is ultimately who you are. And that's beautiful. That's how you make the progress.
Absolutely. So if you loved this episode as much as we loved recording it and making it for you, I would be so grateful if you were to share this episode with a friend. Go over to Spotify, leave a comment on this episode, or go over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a review and a comment there as well. I would love to hear from you over on Instagram. You can reach me at Dr. Angie Brown or at Real Life Runners. Send me a message. Let me know, what is your current intention with your training? How can you make it very clear so that you know what the action steps are that you want to take next? I would love to help guide you. And then, of course, if you want guidance, if you want step-by-step systems so that you can move through this framework, come join the team, come join our programs. We would love to coach you through this as you figure this out in your life to make this a very sustainable change. As always, this has been the Real Life Runners Podcast, episode number 451. Now get out there and run your life.